Welcome to Shalom Achshava on the daf. We're holding in Chulin daf from Gimel. The Gemara in this daf discusses the idea of Derusa, of an animal who puts his claws into another animal and causes some of poison, venom, to go into the animal. We'll say over here two notes are based on Chassidus that are learned from our sugya. One, the Gemara in Mudav tells us that if there was an animal put its claws in another animal and they cut its hand, it does not transfer the venom into the other animal. Why not? Because it only happens only when he removes the hand, that's when the ziyara, that's when the poison goes through. So the Imam speaks about this concept in a few places. One of them is Pashas Yitzroit Yir Tafrit Tzadik. He brings a name of the Sasemes that it says when they blow the shofar in the end of Har Sinai, that's the time of Siluk Shechina. It's a koil orich. There's a long blow when the Shechina leaves the mountain. What's the idea of the long blow? So Sasema says is the idea of kosher alai predaschem. I'm leaving, but it's not so easy. So in the time of departure, that's when you have a kol shofar. It says that's why the end of Shabbos is called Raiva de Ravin, the Rotzon of Ritzoinus. Because at the end, that's when you get to the idea of kosher alai predaschem. The last moment is very elevated. So the Imam brings an example that by Elisha got a bracha from Eliyahu, he's going to be able to get the bracha to bring to life two people. But when did that happen? Only when Eliyahu passed away. Only if I leave, then you'll get it. So only when there's the time of departure, then you get the special bracha that Elisha got from Eliyahu. So he says that's the pshat you see in our Gemara. When does the poison come? When the animal takes his claws, his nails out of its carbon at the end. That's when it happens. When you leave, that's when the bad thing happens. So when you leave, that's when the highest level of Dusha comes. And in Parshas Achimois, Tafir Tzadik Beis, he explains that's the idea that there's a tefillah for Kohen Gadol, Yom Kippurim. There's a tefillah after he removes all the clothes. There's a last tefillah. When he takes his big day love and puts the big day off, he does a tefillah. Why? You don't have any more in avodah. Because when you finish the avodah, when it comes to the end, then you get to the highest level of dusha, as the example that we have in our Gemara, behadi the shalif, then comes in the zihara. And in Sefer Mea Shiloyach the Ishbitzel, Chelek Aleph, Pashas Vayelech, on the pasuk that says Lo uchal oid lotzas v'lovim, Moshe Rabbeinu says his last day can't come in and out. So he says what it means is the Moshe Rabbeinu in his last day, that's when he got the tachlis hashleimus. When a person did not get his tachlis hashleimus, he could still grow. He could still have what to do in this world. But the last day of a person's life, and Moshe Rabbeinu especially, he got to his tachlis in his last day. Once you get to the tachlis, there's no more going up and no more going down. That's what it means. Lo yuchal oid lotzes v'lovoi. Can't go back up and down once the shleimus is complete. So the grandson of the Mea Shiloach, the Soid Yisharim, the Redziner, see, he adds it and says, that's the idea that we have in our Gemara, Ba'ad the Sholif. That's when the Ziyara comes. Meaning when the end, that's when the highest level comes to. When a person leaves the world, that last moment that he leaves, that last day, that's when he gets to the highest level of Kedusha of his life. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave that moment all the koiches of Torah to Am Yisrael. The shleimus of Kedusha Moshe Rabbeinu given to Am Yisrael happened on the day of his death, the day of his miso, because that's the Behad de Shalif. When he's going out, that's when he gives the biggest load of Kedusha, as we see in our Gemara, Legabe Tuma, Koshke Legabe Kedusha. So that's the Kudah number one. The Kudah number two is brought down also in the Soid Yisharim, on Purim, on the day, Oisches. As what the Gemara says just a few lines before this, that ain't Druso lekelev. A dog doesn't have Drisa. What does it mean? Other animals, they have drisa, they have actual poison, actual venom that goes from them to the next animal, to their carbon. But a dog doesn't have that. So he says there's a remez over here. We know that a molek is mashal to a kelev. What's the definition of the kelev that you have by a molek? So he says, Pshah like this. Other umas ha'olam, they come against Am Yisrael when Am Yisrael did something wrong. There's some mamashas over here. There's something to go against Am Yisrael. Look, they're sinning. They're doing something wrong. They represent the bad that Am Yisrael has. They come to take it over. They come and emphasize the bad. It's like the ziharo that the animal puts in another animal. But a molek, what my molek does is, before there's any bad, before there's anything bad created, there's just a hava, there's just a rutz to do something bad. That's what a molek comes and represents. The koyach kitrug of Amalek is coming to Taina against the Ratzon Rishon of Am Yisrael. Represents when the Yetzer Hara comes to Adam and just starts the process before he did anything wrong. But the fact he gives him that will to do it, that's when he comes against it. So they don't really have what to catch onto. There's no real aveir over here. Just beginning of the process. That's like a dog. Ein drisa lekelev. There's no real venom that comes by the kelev. He just attacks without it. That's what a Molech does. He attacks the initial thought, the Ratzon Rishon of Am Yisrael, not the actual Chet. That's the Reishis, Goyim Amalek. They cover the Reishis, they cover that first stage. And Ayin Sham, when he goes ahead to be marchiv this inyan. So we're learning in Yoni Derusa, very technical things, but there's oimik divrei Chassidus in every piece of a Gemara. Anyone who wants to join a sponsor, Shomachshava Shiurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.